September 12, 1943. General Heinrich von Vietinghoff studied the terrain around Salerno and smiled. Mathematics didn't lie. Physics didn't negotiate. And right now, both were on his side. He was old-school Prussian military. 30 years of doctrine, 30 years of victories built on simple principles. High ground beats low ground, armor beats infantry, trapped enemies die. His 10th Army occupied the mountains, ringing the Gulf of Salerno. Jagged limestone peaks that looked down on the invasion beaches like bleachers in an ancient arena. Perfect killing ground. Below, squeezed onto a thin strip of marshy coastline barely 5 miles deep, sat the US 5th Army. Vietinghoff watched them through his binoculars. They weren't advancing. They were barely surviving. Disorganized, chaotic, vulnerable. His 16th Panzer Division waited in the hills. Veterans, ready. The terrain gave him every advantage. His spotters could see every American movement, every vehicle, every supply dump. Standard military math said the Americans should be drowning in the Mediterranean within 2 days. German headquarters was already writing the victory announcement. They called it the Second Dunkirk. The Americans were about to learn what happens when you land on the wrong beach. Operation Avalanche was dying before it could begin. The Allied planners had made a catastrophic geographical mistake. The Sile River cut straight through the landing zone. It split the British X-Corps in the north from the US Siscod Corps in the south. 7 miles of empty ground. No soldiers, no tanks, no defenses, just open space. For a German general who'd mastered blitzkrieg warfare, this wasn't a problem to solve. It was a gift to exploit. Vietinghoff didn't hesitate. He concentrated 6 full divisions on that gap. The 26th Panzer, the 29th Panzer Grenadier, all aimed like a spear point at the Allied weakness. His artillery observers sat in the hills above Paestum and Battipaglia. They had perfect visibility. They watched Americans struggle to unload equipment in the sand. They saw the confusion, the delays, the panic. German mortars and 80mm guns rained down continuously. The Americans couldn't move forward. They couldn't dig proper defenses. They could barely breathe. The psychological warfare was working. Soldiers weren't advancing inland. They were clawing holes in the sand, just hoping to survive another hour. To the Germans watching from above, the invasion force looked like a dying animal, wounded, helpless, waiting for the killing blow. September 13th. The crisis deepened. General Mark Clark commanded the American forces. His situation reports read like horror stories. The 36th Infantry Division was bleeding. Ammunition running critically low, heavy equipment still trapped on ships or stuck in the surf, sandbars and enemy fire blocking everything. The beachhead looked like a bomb had hit a warehouse. Ammunition crates stacked next to food rations, next to medical supplies, next to fuel cans. Everything jumbled together because there was nowhere else to put it. Bulldozers tried cutting paths through the chaos. But every time they cleared a lane, another wave of landing craft arrived and dumped more men and material into the mess. A traffic jam in a shooting gallery. Clark's staff started drafting emergency evacuation plans. Operation Celian, the code name for admitting defeat. The plan meant abandoning the southern beaches entirely, retreating to the British sector, giving up. This was the lowest point. The Luftwaffe smelled blood. 450 sorties daily, from bases at Foggia, dive bombers hammering the landing craft, pounding the supply dumps. Air raid sirens screamed constantly. Men dove into shallow trenches, crawled behind crates, waited for the bombs, then crawled back out and kept working. The Germans tightened their grip hour by hour. This wasn't just artillery bombardment. This was psychological destruction. Vietinghoff knew trapped armies break mentally before they break physically. He ordered aggressive probing attacks, testing for the snap point. Panzer Grenadiers infiltrated American positions at night, ambushed supply trucks, cut communication lines, created chaos in the rear areas. The confusion became total. American units landed in wrong sectors, mixed with British troops. Nobody knew where anyone was supposed to be. Inside German headquarters, the mood was electric. They were intercepting American radio transmissions, hearing battalion commanders screaming for ammunition that wasn't coming, for support that didn't exist. Vietinghoff sensed it. The Americans were at breaking point. Time to stop testing. Time to finish this. He ordered the final assault. The objective was brutal in its simplicity. Drive down the Sail-Calor corridor, split the Allied armies, destroy them separately on the beaches. 15:30 hours, September 13th. The German counterattack launched. It unfolded exactly as planned. Panzer IVs burst from the tree lines, their 75mm guns tearing through light American positions. The 36th Infantry Division started crumbling, overwhelmed, outgunned. This was the Schwerpunkt, the decisive point where enemy resistance shatters. German radio intercepts confirmed American panic spreading. An officer's voice crackled over unencrypted channels, desperate, terrified. "Tell them to hold! We have nothing to stop these tanks!" The German spearhead punched 4 miles forward in hours. They could see the ocean now. Tank commanders smelled salt water, saw the American chaos on the beaches, the stacked crates, the fuel drums, the desperate men digging frantically. No anti-tank guns visible, only soft targets. This was going to be a massacre. German crews loaded high explosive rounds, infantry killers. The victory was right there, visible through their gun sights, minutes away from pushing the Americans into the sea. Then something impossible happened. Forward Panzer units stopped reporting. They didn't report enemy contact, didn't report minefields. Just silence. Entire platoons vanished from the radio network. A company of tanks attacking near Pisano went dark within minutes. Vietinghoff demanded explanations. Was the resistance stronger than expected? No. The reports that did come back made no sense. Veteran commanders, men who'd survived Kursk, El Alamein, screaming into radios about volcanoes, steel rain, something falling from the sky. One 16th Panzer Division survivor described the sound, not a whistle, an express train, rushing straight at them. Then the ground didn't explode, it disintegrated. Craters big enough to swallow cars, 30-ton tanks flipped like children's toys. The German advance didn't slow, it evaporated. An entire battalion of infantry in open formation ceased to exist, not from bullets, from concussion waves that ruptured lungs 300 meters away. Vietinghoff demanded answers. Where was this fire originating? Americans had no heavy artillery that far forward. Luftwaffe reported clear skies, no bombers. German commanders scanned the ridges for enemy guns, artillery batteries, tank positions. They were looking in completely the wrong direction. 12 miles offshore, floating calmly on the Tyrrhenian Sea, sat the USS Philadelphia. The USS Philadelphia wasn't a soldier. She was an industrial killing platform. A Brooklyn-class light cruiser designed to deliver 6-inch high explosive shells at 120 rounds per minute. Vietinghoff's calculations had missed one critical variable, a small team hidden in the rubble, the Shorefire control party, buried in a farmhouse, dug into a hillside. A single American lieutenant with a backpack radio watched German tanks advance. He wasn't fighting back. He was reading numbers, grid coordinates. To the Germans, he was invisible. Just another piece of debris. To the Philadelphia, he was the targeting system. Those coordinates fed into a mechanical computer deep in the ship's belly, the Ford Mark 1A fire control computer. This was the secret. An analog computer built from brass gears and rotating cams. 1940s engineering marvel. It didn't just aim guns, it calculated everything. Ship speed, wind speed, Earth's rotation, Coriolis effect, air density, powder temperature, Below decks, sailors in T-shirts repeated numbers, turned hand wheels, set dials. The fire control room didn't resemble a battlefield. It resembled a factory assembly line, men at stations, each handling one small task, trusting the system. Outside, the ship rolled on Mediterranean swells. Inside, the Ford computer erased that motion mathematically, as if the ocean didn't exist. It solved ballistic equations in seconds. The guns rotated automatically, locked on targets they couldn't see, controlled by machinery below. This was Vietinghoff's invisible enemy. At the peak of the German breakthrough, the Philadelphia opened fire. 921 rounds of 6-inch ammunition in just hours, fired directly into German columns. One after-action report documented a single fire mission. Spotter identified roughly 35 German tanks concentrated near a beach. 7 destroyed within minutes, the rest scattered into cover. The attack broken before it truly began. The German panzers were helpless because of one factor: time to fire. Traditional artillery required multiple steps: forward observer radios battery, commander consults tables, calculates angles, shouts orders, crews adjust after first spotting round, 3 to 10 minutes minimum. Against moving tanks, 10 minutes is forever. By the time shells land, targets have relocated. The USS Philadelphia operated on a different clock. The Ford computer linked to a vertical stable element, a gyroscope sensing the ship's roll and pitch. As the cruiser rocked, the computer auto-adjusted gun barrels in real time, hundreds of times per second, keeping them locked on geographical coordinates. The ship could fire while turning, while moving at 20 knots. Shells still landed within a 50-meter circle 12 miles away. From the deck, gun crews saw routine: breech opens, shell loads. Powder bag follows, breech closes, gun captain shouts ready, turret recoils. From the German perspective, that routine became supernatural. Artillery that corrected instantly, as if an invisible hand dragged impacts along their advance route. The American observer didn't wait for calculations. He called coordinates. 30 seconds later, the sky fell. If his first adjustment missed, he spoke again. The next salvo walked onto target. Germans weren't fighting human reflexes. They were fighting an electromechanical brain's processing speed. This eliminated cover as a concept. You cannot hide from mathematics that updates instantly. The bombardment created an unexpected problem: industrial overheating. Rapid-firing 6-inch shells generates massive thermal energy. Philadelphia's barrels became so hot, paint blistered off steel. Normal armies would cease fire for cooling, but the U.S. Navy had engineered solutions for continuous output. As Philadelphia depleted magazines, firing nearly 1,000 rounds in one engagement, she wasn't just emptying storage, she was wearing out machinery. Barrel rifling eroded from copper driving bands on shells. But unlike German supply lines struggling to move single shells down bombed Italian railways, the Allied fleet was a floating factory: spare parts, spare barrels, machine shops just over the horizon. Ammunition ships kept bombarding cruisers and battleships fed. Their captains had one standing order: keep the beachhead secure. Life aboard reflected this mission. Crew accounts from ships off Salerno described days blurring into continuous alarms, air raid sirens, men racing from mess decks to anti-aircraft stations, standing down, racing back to ammunition handling, feeding the main batteries. Sleep came in 20-minute snatches. Hot bunks, clothes and boots on, because the next fire mission could come any time. When one ship exhausted capabilities, another slid into position, a conveyor belt of destruction. Germans fought a finite battle with finite resources. Allies fought an infinite battle with replaceable industrial components. But Philadelphia wasn't alone. As Germans attempted regrouping, the Royal Navy arrived. Battleships HMS Warspite and HMS Valiant took station. These ships carried 15-inch guns, weapons firing projectiles weighing nearly 2,000 pounds, the weight of a small car. When Warspite opened fire, battlefield physics changed. Standard German artillery shells carried 15 pounds of explosive. A 15-inch naval shell carried over 100 pounds. When these shells hit Salerno's limestone terrain, they didn't create shrapnel, they created earthquakes. Shells arrived at supersonic speeds, no warning whistle, just impact. One moment a Panzer Grenadier company advanced. Next moment that section of the map ceased to exist. The psychological impact was devastating. Battle-hardened German veterans broke and ran. They could fight men. They could fight tanks. They could not fight geology being rearranged around them. September 16th. The German counterattack was broken. Vietinghoff ordered general retreat to the Volturno line. He hadn't been defeated by American infantry on the beach. They'd fought bravely, but remained effectively trapped. He'd been defeated by the horizon. Invisible ships created a death zone extending 12 miles inland. No German armor could survive it. The dream of pushing Allies into the sea died not with explosions, but with realization. As long as Allied navies controlled the water, the coast was impregnable. Salerno sent a message for the rest of the war. The age of independent panzer divisions was finished. Against integrated industrial firepower, where air, sea, and land forces functioned as one machine, tactical brilliance became irrelevant. Heinrich von Vietinghoff learned at his army's cost. You cannot maneuver against mathematics, you cannot outflank an industrial assembly line, and you certainly cannot win tank battles against ships firing man-sized shells from places you cannot touch. Thanks for watching Echoes of ww2 Battlefront. Like and subscribe for more forgotten World War II stories. Where are you watching from? What World War II stories should we cover next? Your engagement helps us continue bringing these untold narratives to light.